It started 3 weeks ago. At first, I thought it was just a weird coincidence. I noticed him one night standing beneath the streetlight across from my apartment building. It was late, past midnight, and the street was eerily empty except for him. He wasn't moving. He just stood there, staring up at my window with the widest smile I'd ever seen. I didn't think much of it at the time. People do strange things late at night. I closed the blinds and went to bed. But the next night, he was there again. Same place, same time, same unsettling smile. I stood at my window, staring down at him. His smile never wavered. His eyes never blinked. It was like he was waiting for something. I couldn't see his face clearly in the dim light, but the smile, that awful smile, was unmistakable. This time, a shiver ran down my spine. I pulled the curtain shut and forced myself to forget about it, but I couldn't. I didn't tell anyone at first. What would I say? There's this guy smiling at me from the street every night? It sounded ridiculous, but each night, without fail, he'd appear. He never moved, never made a sound, just stood there, grinning like he knew something I didn't. By the fourth night, I couldn't ignore it anymore. That smile had started to haunt me. Every time I looked out the window, even during the day, I half expected to see him standing there, waiting. I tried calling the police, but what could they do? He wasn't doing anything illegal, just standing there. But that didn't make it any less terrifying. They brushed it off, saying they'd send a patrol car to check the area. It made me feel better for about an hour, but then night came, and so did he. I stopped looking out the window altogether, but even when I wasn't looking, I knew he was there. I could feel his eyes on me, that smile burning through the walls. One night, the tapping started. It was faint at first. I thought it was just a branch brushing against the window, but when I opened the blinds, my blood turned to ice. Handprints, foggy, smeared handprints, covered the glass. I stumbled back, heart pounding in my chest as I realized what had happened. He had been right there, outside my window. I lived on the third floor. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat up in bed, every nerve in my body on edge, listening. The tapping came again, soft at first, like fingertips barely brushing the glass. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Then it grew louder, more insistent. Tap, tap, tap. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I crept toward the window, my hands shaking as I gripped the edge of the curtain. I pulled it back just a crack. There he was. His face was inches from the glass, his smile wider than ever, teeth gleaming in the dim light from the street. But his eyes, there was something wrong with his eyes. They were too wide, too dark, like they were empty. I screamed and stumbled back, my heart racing as I fumbled for my phone. When I looked again, he was gone. Just like that. No handprints, no sign he had ever been there. The next day, I called in sick to work. I couldn't leave the apartment. What if he followed me? What if he wasn't just waiting outside at night, but was watching me during the day too? I shut all the blinds, locked every door, and checked the locks 3, 4, 5 times. But nothing felt safe. That night, I sat in the dark, listening. I knew he'd come. And sure enough, just after midnight, the tapping returned. But this time, it wasn't at the window. It was at the door. My blood ran cold. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The tapping came again, slow and deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. It was like he was playing with me, testing me. Then came a voice, low, soft, and horribly familiar. Let me in. I clamped my hand over my mouth, terrified that even the sound of my breathing might give me away. The door rattled, the doorknob jiggling as if he was trying to open it. Then, silence. I stayed up the rest of the night, my back pressed against the door, too terrified to move. When morning finally came, I dared to open the door. There was nothing. No sign that anyone had been there. But something was left behind. A note taped to the outside of the door. It said, "I like your smile." For the next few days, I didn't leave my apartment. I couldn't. Every night he came back. Sometimes I heard the tapping at the window, sometimes at the door. Sometimes I heard him whispering my name in the hallway. And always, I felt his eyes on me, even when I couldn't see him. I was losing my mind. I had to do something. So, on the 7th night, I made a decision. I was going to confront him. I didn't care if it was dangerous. I couldn't live like this anymore. I sat in my dark apartment waiting for midnight. My heart pounded with every second that passed, my stomach twisting with dread. The tapping started, right on time. I grabbed a kitchen knife and threw open the door, ready to face him. But there was no one there, just the empty hallway. And that's when I realized I hadn't heard the tapping at the door. It was coming from inside. I turned around, my heart stopping in my chest as I saw him, standing in the corner of my living room, that horrible smile stretching across his face. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just smiled. And that's when I noticed the blood. My blood. I looked down and saw the knife still in my hand, covered in it. But I couldn't remember using it. I couldn't remember anything. As I stood there, frozen in horror, the smiling man slowly raised a hand and pointed at the mirror behind me. And that's when I saw it. The reflection was smiling back at me. This is where the story ends. For now, the smiling man has never left me. Every night, I see his grin in the shadows, in reflections, and in places where no one should be. The question isn't whether he's coming for me again. It's whether I'll let him in.